I was having a strategy breakthrough session with someone this week, and it was interesting because he was talking about how he goes, look, I'm looking at the charts, RC. You taught me to look at the charts, and I see that 35-year, 36-year bond bull market ending. I see it. Like, I see it ending. I'm looking at the price charts. I see whether you're looking at the price, so you see 36 years of the price of the 10-year treasury going higher, or you look at the yield, which is just the opposite. He goes, I'm looking at it, and I see that the price of the 10-year bond has gone sideways for 5.5 years. He goes, here I am in my 60s. I've got 30 more years. I was taught to believe that your age determines your asset allocation. And yet you've taught me that, of course, your age matters. I mean, but it's like the pinch of salt in the recipe, right? What matters most is what's actually going on in the market. And so he's going through these things. He's kind of telling me what he's learned. But then he says it. He goes, it's still scary. Like, I'm still scared. I know at 65 that bonds will not be best for me for the next 30 years. I know that. I'm looking at the price chart. I get it. I've looked at the 100-year price chart that you've shown me, where these bond bull markets and bond bear markets go 30, years plus or minus. I see this one's in 36 years. I see it, and it still scares me because I've only been taught that at age 65, of course you've got to have bonds. Of course you've got to have bonds. Of course you've got to have bonds. And he goes, but now, now that you've shown me how to use my pattern recognition part of my brain, I'm starting to get like, where the danger can be, this blind danger that I talk about. And so with that, I want to share with you another example of where you and your brain is getting fooled over and over and over again. But by turning on the pattern recognition part of your brain, you can actually plug the leaks in your portfolio, that 3, 4, 5%. You have a $500,000 portfolio. I'm telling you, in that strategy session, I'll point out to you where you're losing $25,000 a year in a $500,000 portfolio. You got a $1 million portfolio, I will point out to you where you're losing $50,000. And I'm not talking about the management fee that you pay LPL Financial. That's the obvious stuff. I'm talking about the stuff you can't see because you've never been trained to see it. And because I have dyslexia, I turned my disability into a feature, and that feature is able to see images, which I can show you how to do it, and it's able to show you immediately, oh, this is not good for me. This is good for somebody else. So with that, I want to share with you another way that you're being fooled, and it's by one of the highest paid foolers on the planet. Hey everybody, this is RC Peck. This is my weekend podcast. Though it is April 1st, nothing in here will be participating in the April Fools. This is all real stuff. And what I want to share you is this. It was actually the headline of a story-based pick of the month newsletter that came out in February of 2016, right? So it came out 14 months ago. And this February newsletter came out and said, collect your share of a legendary investor's $1 billion bonus. I realize that I have the quote here, but not up here. Go with it and let that be okay. Right, so collect your share of a legendary investor's $1 billion bonus. I want part of that $1 billion bonus. So that verbal framing, I'm already like salivating. Like, well, what is it? Who's the legendary investor? What's the $1 billion bonus? And how do I get my share? So this is what one of the highest paid writers wrote as its headline for his newsletter. Now, you may be thinking, no, RC, highest paid writers, that's like Dan Brown. Dan Brown made $9.5 million last year. Or Paula Hawkins, she made $10.5 million. She wrote The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, if you don't know. Or E.L. James, she made $14 million last year. She wrote 50 Shades of Grey. Daniel Steele made $15 million last year. John Grisham made $18 million last year. J.K. Rowling made $19 million. So you might be thinking, the highest paid people who write are those people. Well, this guy that I'm talking about, he's got them all beat. He makes way, way more than any of them. Now, he's not writing novels. He's writing headlines like this on your screen: collect your share of a legendary investor's $1 billion bonus. Now, he goes on to verbally frame and talk about investors pocketed all of their original investment. Right? This is one of the world's greatest investors, and he launched this fund Fund 7B in 2007. He raised $10 billion, and his investors were making a killing. The guy who started this fund, the 7B fund, he gave an 80% return to his investors. This legendary investor manages over $100 billion. Guys, by the way, all this stuff is true, and all of this I took verbatim from his newsletter that he sent out 14 months ago. This person is one of the world's most revered investors. Not the guy who's writing it, but the one who started the 7B fund. Right? And so the guy he's talking about, he goes on and talks about how it's Howard Marks, a man that works for Oak Mark Capital, manages over $100 billion, and he is just gobbling up, pocketing. I mean, I love that word, pocketing, gobbling up, raking in. And so he goes on and talks about, hey, how can you get your share of this guy, of this guy's legendariness, right? And so when you're reading all of this, what you're doing, when you're reading all this, what you're doing is you're loading up this image. You're loading up this image of this just amazing thing, like this gorgeous Mercedes-Benz, and you're driving down the highway, and your brain is free, life is good, you're having a luxurious life, because those words are framing this amazing life. So this financial investment newsletter writer, the highest paid investment newsletter writer in the world, who makes more than Dan Brown or J.K. Rowling, right, or Daniel Steele, right? He's not writing novels. He's writing stories. He's writing story-based pick of the month information, data for you. And when he writes those, you load up these images of like, oh my God, it's gonna work. It's gonna work out. It's gonna work out. So the person who wrote that in February of 2016 was a guy named Porter Stansberry. And he is if not the highest paid writer on the planet, right? Because, I mean, there is still people like James Patterson who makes a lot of money, but he's probably right up there with James Patterson, making tens and tens and tens and tens and tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars a year, writing story-based pick of the month newsletters to you. So look at this price chart here. So he suggested you buy OAK, Oak Tree Capital. I said Oak Mark before. I meant Oak Tree Capital Group. Right? He said you should buy Oak Tree Capital Group because this is Howard Marks is the legendary investor behind it. Now, the price chart you're looking at is comparing Oak Tree Capital Group against the S&P 500. And the red dot signifies where Porter Stansberry said, man, you got to get your portion of this $1 billion bonus. Now, one of the 4 questions my clients learn. And once they learn the questions, they can answer those questions with an image that you're looking at. Well, this image clearly is telling your brain, hey man, if I buy a portion of that legendary's bonus, I'm going to lose money. Because you know what? It's underperforming the S&P 500. And you can tell in this price chart because if this price chart is going lower, and this is a power flow chart. This is a power flow chart that's showing you where the power is flowing. It's not flowing into Oak Tree. The money's not flowing into Oak Tree more than the S&P. And so people who bought Oak Tree Capital based on that amazingly written story by one of the highest paid writers on the planet, and I'm actually willing to bet Porter Stansberry probably is the highest paid writer ever. Maybe he's right behind J.K. Rowling because she's got hundreds of millions. The point is, he is amazing at it. And he has people buying things that are hurting their portfolio. Now, I can show you a different price chart. The red line is Oaktree being compared against the blue line, which is the S&P 500. Now, guys, you know, if you've been in my world, I do not believe in a buy and hold and buy and forget, because there are periods of time where the stock market, the S&P 500, goes through pretty scary corrections where they can fall. It fell 49% in 2000, fell 58% starting in 2007. So this is not a buy and forget approach. I'm simply pointing out that when you ask the right questions and you can answer those questions visually, your life changes. And you have the best, or one of the best, highest paid, highest compensated story writers on the planet fooling your brain, right? Fooling your brain to buy this. Buying a crappy car, buying a story, but not a good investment. And I just had to put on the pacer because I just love this. Introducing the first wide small car. Porter would never have had that headline. He would never have put in introducing the first wide small car. Now, first of all, the headline is pretty crappy, but even a good headline would not have helped the pacer. But what's happening is your brain is getting fooled with verbal framing, right? And you've seen me do this. You've seen me show you how verbal framing has hurt your investments. Ask yourself these power questions and be able to answer them visually, and your life gets security. You're figuring it out. You've either figured it out or you're figuring it out. So if you're 65, you know the bond market is ending. Change the questions, answer them with images, right? You get the steadiness back. You get the stability back. You get control back. You're not at the whims of one of the best financial writers. I shouldn't even say financial. One of the highest compensated writers on the planet. Ask the right questions. Answer those questions with images. Okay, so what is the takeaway? Guys, because I have this feature called dyslexia, it forced me to look at images, right? It forced me to say, okay, well, let's look at a price chart. Okay, well, let's compare something. What are different ways I can compare, right? I turn my dyslexia into a feature. And so images, right? Images, not words. Images, not stories. Images, not data. And when you do this, you start to figure it out. You get the control back of your future. You don't buy stocks that slow the growth of your money. You can still read the stories so you can look smart to your friends at the club. But the best way to look smart is to have that stability and that stableness and looking smart to your wife or your spouse, because your money is being protected and it's growing well. Hey guys, this is just another step in helping you protect your future and your portfolio. Until next time, this is RC Peck. Hey guys, thanks so much for being in my world. Hey, I just want to let you know, I have literally one opening if someone wants to get on my calendar for next Friday, the 7th, April 7th, for me to look at your portfolio, for me to look at your numbers, and to show you exactly where the leaks are coming from and where the pain is, right? People often say, like, I don't know what it is. I haven't figured it out yet. I got to figure it out. I've got to figure it out. I'm 52 now. I'm 62 now. I'm 72 now. If not for me, for my kids. And I look up a lot of words. I looked up the definition of luxury because I wanted to see what it was. And it's the state of great comfort. That's what the definition of luxury is, the state of great comfort. And I think about what's my luxury. And one of my luxuries, and please, you probably know this about me, but one of my luxuries is I get to drive my kids to school 3 times a week and pick them up. And there's these moments, and all parents know about these moments, where you connect with your kid. You can tell your kid. I had this happened this morning with Bowen. He's 9.5. We're sitting. My wife has a Prius, and the back hatchback is open. We're sitting on it, waiting for Burgess to get back, and we're sitting there. And I hold Bowen's hand, and I look at him. All right, this little 9.5-year-old. He's got braces, and his eyes are big. He's just this beautiful boy, beautiful, gorgeous boy. And I said, I see you. I see you. I love you, and I'm amazed by you. And I am so lucky to be your dad. And I mess up sometimes, and you're my firstborn. I only have 2 kids. And you're my firstborn, and I'm going to mess up some more. But I want you to know that I love you, and I see you. And he looked at me, and he looks away, and he looks at me, and he looks away. And I could tell it was going in, and there was that moment of like, I love you too, Dad. And to have him go off to school on a Friday knowing that his dad sees him, being seen, that he knows in his heart that his dad loves him, that's luxury. That's luxury for him, right? That state of great comfort, and that's luxury for me. And so when I talk about having a luxurious life and having luxury, I'm not talking about a Mercedes, right? I'm talking about knowing you will not run out of money, knowing you will have enough money, knowing that you don't have to worry about when the next shoe drops with the market. Of course, you know there's going to be another 50% correction, but knowing that you won't be hurt, that is luxury. And for those of you who want luxury, want a luxurious future, the next step is connecting with me. We look at your portfolio, we find out what's working, what's not working, where's the gap, and how to fill the gap, and your life changes. Maybe we work together, maybe we don't, but you know exactly where you have to focus. Thanks, guys, so much. There's a PS where you can go to that link. There is literally one opening for the 7th, and then we actually have to go way out to the 20th and the 21st of April to get on my calendar. And I love those conversations. So, guys, thank you for being my world, and I will connect with you soon.